Alright, part 1155, Subpart C, procedure governing application for land use exemption permits. 1155.20, with the no intent, notice of the intent to apply for land use exemption permit with the following publication will come with the application for the solid waste rail transfer facility with the rail carrier that owns operative with the facility should give the notice of the intent to file with the land use exemption permit application by complying with the following procedures. A1, filing application must serve with the notice of the intent of the board in the form prescribed with the appendix A with the part of the notice of the intent shall be filed within accordance with the time and the requirements of paragraph B with this section. Serve with the application must serve with the first-class mail unless otherwise specified with the notice of intent upon the governor of the state where the facility is located with the municipality and state with the relevant public subdivision of the state and federal, state, regional, planning, any jurisdiction in which the solid waste rail transfer facility is located with the proposed to be located with the appropriate management of the governing agencies responsible for the groups of lands listed in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099C2. Newspaper publication application must be published in the notice of the intent of the lease once during each 3 consecutive weeks for the newspaper generally circulation of each of the county in which any of the proposed existing facilities located. Time limit. The notice of the intent must be served with the parties just discussed with above at least 15 days, but not more than 30 days prior to the filing of the land use exemption permit application. The 3 required newspaper notices must be published within a 30-day period prior to the filing of the application. Notice of the intent must be filed with the board, either concurrently with the service of the required parties for the notice of the first published, whichever occurs first. Environmental historic reports. The application must also submit with environmental and historical reports containing the information described in Title 49 Standard 1155.24b with 1105.7 and 1105.8 to the extent applicable to 45 days prior to the filing application. The Office of Environmental Assistance may be rejected the report with a deemed inadequate environmental historical reporting requirements, though would otherwise apply with the waive that, however, the application of the board, however, the third-party consent, the Office of Environmental Assistance approve of the consultant work, and the consultant works of the Office of Environmental Assistance supervision to prepare the environmental impact statement or the environmental documentation. In such a case, the consultation acted on behalf of the board working on the Office of Environmental Association direction of the conflict with the need of environmental information compiled into the environmental impact statement or the appropriate environmental documentation. See Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099H or Title 49 CFR 1155.24C. Part 1155.21, content of the application. Application land use exemption permit for the facility and for the proposed future expansion for the 10 years. The application date should contain the following information, including with the supporting documentation, general exact name of the application, with the application, with the comment of the carrier of the railroad, subject to Title 49 U.S. Code. Subtitle 4, Chapter 105, Summary of whether the land use exemption permit is being sought with the full address of the solid waste the rail transfer facility, if not available, the facility statement of the United States with the postal zip code, name of the rail carrier owns operative facility of the rail carrier with the behalf of the facility, operative of the line railroad, service of the facility of the mile post, location facility of the mile post, name of the station with the facility located between, name of the title address of the representative of the application to whom the comments should be sent with the copies of specific state and local local regulations, order of the requirements affecting this sitting of the solid waste rail transfer facility with the application and the request for the entire partial examination and the publicly available material provided with the criteria for the application, state and local municipal laws, regulations, orders, or other requirements affecting the sitting with the description of any of the actions state, local, or municipal authority has been taken effective in the stating of the facility with the application states wherever each of the law, regulations, orders, or the requirement from an exemption with the result of the environmental, public health, the public and safety standard with the falls under the traditional police powers of the public powers of the state. Application state with the requirements not such as the standard it shall explain with the reasons for its statement. The certification with the laws, regulation, order with the requirements for the application request exempt is or not based on the federal law, regulations, or order with the requirements. Certification of the facility comply with all state and local municipal laws, regulations, or orders for the other requirements affecting the sitting of the facility except for those that would seek exemption. Certificate of the application has applied with the appropriate state permits that are not affecting the facilities existing with October 16, 2008. Certificate of the facility is not proposed with the located with the land with any of the or land affiliated with the National Park Service, the National Wildlife Refuge System, National Wilderness Preservation System, National Trail System, the National Wild Science and Wild Scenic River System, the National Reserve, and a National Monument for facilities existing October 16, 2008 with the state whether the facility is located within any of these type of lands. For facility existing with the October 16, 2008 certification of the facility not proposed with the located with the lands reference for the Highlands Conservation Act with the Public Law number 108-421 for which the state with the implement with the conservation management plan with the facility consistent with the restriction implemented with the applicable state under the Lands Conservation Act, Public Law Number 108421, placed in the proposed location facility of the existing of the October 16, 2008 state, whether the facility is located in of these lands, if so, with the address of the facility consistent with the restriction placed on the location of the applicable state under law. The explanation of how the facility comes with the Board of Jurisdiction at Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1051, owner and operator of the facility with the interest of the rail carrier of the facility, explanation of how the facility meets with the definition of solid waste rail transfer, Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 E1H. 17. A statement of whether the applicable shall have the permission through the applicable state, local, the municipal authority with respect to the shown of all the facility application for the receipt of the unsatisfactory result affecting the sitting of the facility with the application provided with the information about the unsatisfactory result shall include all the relevant order of decision, other notice of the denial. 18. A detailed description of the operation activities will occur with the occurring with the facility. Detailed map showing with the subject of the facility. The sheet is no longer than 11 by 17 inches drawn on the scale with the scale shown there with the map of the shown in the clear reliefly exact location of the facility rail line and relation to the rail lines in the area of the highways, water routes, population center of the any graphic features. Geographic features shall be considered to determine whether the facility would pose the unreasonable risk for the public health and safety environmental pursuant to Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 C1. Detailed drawing of the subject of the facility. The sheet no longer than 11/16 inches drawn on the scale with the scale shown there of the draw must show the clear relief of the exact boundary of the facility structure of the facility location type of the operation taking place at the facility proposed traffic configuration solid waste entering leaving the facility reasonable future expansion plan for the next 10 years for the application requested can be included with the land use exemption permit with the geographical features should consider determining whether the facility would be posed the unreasonable risk for the public health, safety, environment pursuant to Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 C1 and any of the information the applicant believes would be relevant. Detailed jurisdiction aiming for the future expansion plan for the next 10 years should be covered with the land use exemption permit. A statement of the set for the floor of the base on the current available the information for the reason for the board should grant the land exemption permit for the application under the standard Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 C and D of the regulation with its parts. Particularly, the application shall include the explanation whether the laws and regulation and other requirements affected with the facility from which the exemption is solid on the face of it is applied with the unreasonable board of the interstate with the transportation solid waste of the railroad discriminating against the railroad transportation of the solid waste and the solid waste rail transfer facility and so why. Environmental impact. The application shall certify that the submitted with the environmental historical report contained with the information on Title 49 1155-24 with the B with the 11057 11058 and the extent of the applicable with the environmental and historical report is required to see Title 49 1155-20C. Additional information. Application shall submit with the additional information for the support of the application of the board may require. Draft Federal Register notice. The application submitted with the draft note for the application to be published by the board. Addition with a regular number of the copies that must be filed with the board. With the applicant must submit with a copy of the draft notes as the data contained with the computer diskette compatibility with the board's current word processing capability. The board will publish the notes of the Federal Register within 20 days of the applicant filing with the board. The draft of the notes shall be set forth in the Appendix B of this part with the F of the verification. Original application shall be executed, verified with the form set below, but the officer of the application ahead with the knowledge of the facts of the matters replied on verification state with the SS number of the county with the name of the affiliate makes the other state with the he or she is the title of the affiliate and with the name of the applicant with the applicable herein that he is authorized with the application appropriate code with the verified with the file service for transportation board foregoing application finance document sub number and that he or she carefully examined all of the statements within the application as well as exhibited narratives to and then part of that she has knowledge of the facts of the matter relied upon with the application of the representation set forth there and true and correct to the best of his or knowledge information believed. Signature subscribed sworn before blank in the state of the county above named in this blank day of the blank 20 my 20 something. My commission expires. Alright, 1155-22 for the following. Submit the application. For the application, 10 for the application for the affidavit, the testing with the complying with the notice of the requirements. Title 49 U.S. CFR with 1150-20 with the affidavit should include with the date of the submit the posting with the name hyper over the publication notice for the intent. When the application is filed with the board with the applicant, serve with concurrently with the first class mail with a copy of the governor state where the facility is located with the municipality state with any relevant public subdivision state with the federal state regional planning entity with the jurisdiction in which the solid waste rail transfer facility is located, proposed or located with appropriate managing government agencies. Responsible for the group of the land listed with the Title 49 Standard Code 1099C2 with a copy of the certificate served filed with the board at the same time applicant promptly with the furnished with this first class mail with a copy of the applicant for the interested person that proposed the filing comment upon the request for the copy of the certificate shall be filed with the board at the same time. Alright, D. Upon filing a land use exemption permit application, the board will review the application to determine whether it conforms to all of the applicable regulation and the application is substantial and incomplete as otherwise defective. The board shall reject the application state reason for the order within 20 days of the filing application. The board does not reject the application. The notice of the filing application shall be published in the Federal Register by the board through the director of the office of the proceeding within 20 days of the application. If the application is rejected, the revised application may be submitted. The board will determine whether the resubmitted application conforms to the prescribed regulations properly. Revised application submitted within 60 days of the order of the order rejecting the incomplete proper application must not be subject to no notice publication under 115020 unless the defect causing the rejection was used in notice of the end or publication. Revised application submitted after each 60-day period must newly be published in notice of the resubmission for the complete with the property filed with the land use exemption permit application shall be considered the de novo filing of the purpose for the computation time period prescribed in the regulation contained in this part. If the an applicant may seek the waiver of the specific regulation listed in Subpart C by the filing of the petition for the waiver of the board, with the petition is filed with the board, applicant shall serve by first-class mail copy of the governor of the state where the facility is located with the municipality of the state within any relevant public subdivision, state, federal, or state regional planning entity with the jurisdiction in which the solid waste rail transfer facility is located with the proposed located with the appropriate managing government agency responsible for the groups of land is land listed in the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 C2 with a copy of the certificate service filed with the board over the same time with the decision director office of the proceeding granting the denying waiver. Petition will be issued 30 days of the day of the petition is filed with the appeal for the director's decision will be decided by the entire board. If the waiver is not obtained prior to the filing of the application may be subject to the rejection. 115523. Participating in application. Initial comment of the interested person may become with the party for the land use exemption permit of the provider and proceeding with the filing with the initial comments of the board within 45 days of the filing application. Comments should contain with the following information and appropriate name and address, organizational affiliation, state with the describing the commenter's interest of the proceeding. They include with the information concerning any of the organization, public interest, and represents. Reason for the general why the commenter supports and opposes the application taken into account by the standards of the board review that considers set forth in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 C and D with this part any rebuttal evidence of the argument submitted with the application. Alright, B, the final comment of the interested person include the application 30 days after the Office of Environmental Analysis. Environment may comment, however, the information developed over the Office of Environmental Assistance, environmental review with the concern of the consideration, Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 D1 through 5 should be weighed and the remaining transportation of the relevant consideration, Title 49 D9 1099 D6 through 7 parties that have an additional 15 days to respond to the other parties' arguments. The L pleading shall be limited when the information developed in the Office of Environmental Assistance Environmental Review with transportation and or concern for the should not be directed with the adequacy over the Office of Environmental Assistance Environmental Review. Interested persons may comment with the adequacy of the Office of Environmental Assistance Environmental Review during the normal comment period with the environmental impact statement that provided in Title 49 CFR 1105-10A4 see Title 49 CFR 1155-24A with all the comments from the paragraph shall contain the information required in paragraph A1 through A2 of this section. Following superficial comment, the reply with including evidence with the argument with the initial comment should be filed with the board addressed with the chief of the section with the administrative office of the proceeding Surface Transportation Board 395 East Street, South Washington, D.C. 20423 within 45 days of the filing board of the land use exemption permanent application of the original 10 copies of each of the comments should be filed with the board. A copy of each of the comments shall be served with the application with the representative at the time of the filing with the board. Each filing shall contain the certificate of the serve of the filing comments shall be filed with the served on all parties within 30 days of the close of the environmental review. The original 10 copies of the comments shall be filed with the board, and copy of each of the comments shall be served with the application representative at the time filing with the board. Each filing should contain a certificate of the service of replies of the filing comments should be served on parties no later than 40 days after the close of the environmental review. An original 10 copies of each of the replies shall be filed with the board. A copy of each of the reply comments should be served with the applicant with the representative at the time of the filing of the board. Each of the filing shall contain a certificate of service. Art 1155-24 Environmental Review. Land exemption permit with the generally required for the preparation of the environmental impact statement with the Office of Environmental Assistance required classify with the environmental review requirements of the land exemption proceeding case by case pursuant to Title 49 CFR 11056D. The applicant land use exemption permit must submit with the environment will report at least 45 days prior to the land use exemption permit application contained with the information described in Title 49 CFR 11057. To the extent of the applicable solid waste rail transfer facility application shall currently with a historical report containing information on Title 49 CFR 11058. If applicable, the environmental report must also contain discussion of the 5 factors of the consideration listed in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099 D through 1 through 5, addressing associated environmental impact that relate to the facility with the land use exemption permit sought. The board strongly encourages the application of the third party with the contractors to assist the Office of Environmental Assistance in preparing the appropriate environmental documentation land use exemption permit proceedings. See Title 49, 1105D, 10D. If the environmental reporting requirements outlined above would otherwise be waived, the application, however, the third party can contract the Office of Environmental Assistance, approve of the scope of the contractor's work, and contractor's work of the Office of Environmental Assistance with the director's supervision. See Title 49, 1105D, 10D. If the application does not have the independent third party contractor, the board may hire a third party contractor charged for the cost of the contractor to the applicant. See Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099H. The board procedures set forth in Title 49, 1105, 10 for implementation of environmental laws controlling unless superseded by the provisions of this part. Application land use exemption permit must follow the board procedures at Title 49, 1105, 9 for compliance with the Coastal Zone Management Act of Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 1451 through 1465 if the act is applicable. Our 1155-25 transfer termination land use exemption permit. A land use exemption permit with the B transfer the rail carrier to the acquiring rail carrier without need of the new application land use exemption permit. The Rail Line Association solid waste rail transfer still the transfer to another rail carrier to any form with the company of the rail carrier pursuant to the authority granted by the board under Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1091, 1092, 1132, 3 with seeking the board authority under Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1091, 1092. 1132.3 with the applicant specifically advised of the board with the municipal, state within relevant public subdivision, state of the federal, state, regional planning, and any of the jurisdiction in which the solid waste rail transfer facility is located with the intent of the transfer. Federal Register notice concerning the acquisition include with the statement of the solid waste transfer facility with the board issued land exemption and permits include with the acquisition. Or when a carrier plans to see the coveting of the facility with the solid waste, the rail transfer facility with the facility transfer with any of the part of any of the manner other than described in paragraph A of the section that any of the receive the land use exemption permit that must notify the board of the municipality, state with any relevant public subdivision, state and federal, state regional planning, any of the jurisdiction in which the solid waste with the rail transfer facility is located with the writing of it no later than 60 days prior to the proposed solicitation or transfer upon the receipt of the notice of the board will publish the notice of the Federal Register with the land use exemption permit with the ability to terminate in 60 days but unless the other ordered by the board. Our 1155-26 for the board determination of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1099. Schedule of the paragraph of the A2 of the section governing the process of the board consideration decision land use exemption permit with the application for the proceeding with the time of the applicant is filed until the time of the board decision with the merits at least 45 days prior to the filing of environmental report with a historic report with applicable to the filing of the environmental process with the intent initiated pursuant to Title 49 CFR 1155-24 within 30 days prior to the filing application notice and filed with the board pursuant to the deadline requirements are described in Title 49, 1150-20B3. Day 0, applicant filed with the day 20 due date notice of the application and published with the Federal Register. Day 45 due date initial comments is 30 days after the final environmental impact statement. Other final environmental document is issued by the Office of Environmental Assistance. Due date with the final comments 45 after the final environmental impact statement or other final environmental document is issued by the Office of Environmental Assistance. Due date for the reply for the final comments. A decision of the merits will be due for the any days of the full record of development and the standard review for the board with the will issue the land exemption permit for the others only determines if the result of the existing proposed location would not pose the unreasonable risk to the public health and safety of the environmental and deciding whether the solid waste rail transfer facility that is proposed as a constructed operative on the behalf of the rail carrier poses the unreasonable risk to the public health and safety environmental board that shall waive the particular facility potential benefits adversely with the impact for the public and health, public safety, environmental interest, state commerce with the rail transportation solid waste by rail. The board will not grant land use exemption permit for the solid waste rail transfer facility proposed to be located with the land within any unit of their land affiliated with the National Park System, National Wildlife Refuge System, National Wilderness Preservation System, National Trail System, National Wild Scenic River System, National Reserve, and National Monument. Alright, 3. The board will not grant the land exemption permit with the solid waste for the rail transfer facility proposed to be located on land with any of the unit of the area or land affiliated with the land reference to the Highland Conservation Act Public Law number 108-421, for which the state has implemented with the conversation of the management plan with the operation of the facility should be inconsistent with the restriction board on the such land. The board will reject the application from the person who is not rail with the carrier but instead operating on the behalf of the rail carrier unless the application has said that the permissible applicable state and local or municipal authority will be respected the sum of the property applicable to receive the amount and satisfactory result affecting the sitting of the facility and or the governor of state has the position of the board to require the facility to apply with the subpart B with the subpart of the board will be issued land use exemption with the applicant but received unsatisfactory result state local municipal authority affecting the sitting of the facility only finds the law of the regulations and other requirements effective of the sitting of the facility and their other face of the applied other office. It applied either. Alright, discrimination given the railroad, transportation, solid waste for the solid rail transfer facility, the land use exemption permit with the only state with the local municipal law regulations or other requirements of the portion thereof affecting the sitting of the solid waste rail transfer facility. Consideration required by the Title 49, 1099 will board with the consider the given the due weight with the following applicable. The land use zoning of the city and the regulations, solid waste planning and the requirements statement, the subdivision of the facility, if there will be located applicable solid waste transfer facility, and given those not owned by the operator with the behalf of the rail carrier, the land use zoning and the setting of the regulations, solid waste of the requirements of applicable to the property where the solid waste rail transfer of the facility is proposed, located the regional transportation plan. Regional transportation plan requirement to develop pursuant to the federal and state laws. Regional solid waste disposal plan to develop pursuant to the federal and state laws. Any federal, state environmental protection law of the regulation applicable to the site. Unreasonable burdens imposed by the interstate with the transportation solid waste by rail and by potential of the discrimination of the railroad transportation solid waste, the solid waste rail transfer facility, rail carrier that owns operator of the specific facility. Other relevant factors determine the board. D permits. The board grants land use exemption permit of the solid waste rail transfer facility, such as the permit that only exempting the facility that comply with the state laws, regulation, order requirements for the affecting the sitting of the facility with the specified therein. The permit will require complying with all other state laws, regulations, or orders, other requirements that must not otherwise expressly exempt exemption in the permit. 1155-27. The petitions modified amendment of the Baroque land use exemption permit. The general rule: the petitions to modify the amendment of the Baroque land use exemption permit shall decide in accordance with the board normal standard review of the petition to reopen over the administrative of the final board action with the 49 CFR 1115-4 of the petition must demonstrate with the material error with the new evidence with the substantial charge circumstances that warrant requested action within subject of additional conditions and either the petition with petitions the notification amendment the requesting expansion of the federal preemption facilities operation physical side of the subject of the notice of the application will come with the subpart C, but the language of the notification shall be modified. The note of the petition with the modification amendment. The board will approve the denial of the petition modified amending the revoke of the land use exemption permit within 90 days after the full record of the petition is developed. And they go through Appendix A and Appendix B, and 11 parts 1156 through 1176 are reserved. Parts 1177 through 1199 are finance procedures. Testing.